Okay, Mr. Baumer here, and welcome to Unit 7, and it's all about exponents, all right? Exponents and polynomials in Unit 7. So, today, after you've already watched a video on the Khan Academy for last class's homework, we're going to be looking at applying these, what amounts to 7 properties of exponents, all right? So you should be writing down the objective. Student will be able to simplify expressions by applying properties of exponents. Remember, there's going to be 7 of them. And you've heard me say it several times this year, more than several, I imagine. But there are certain tools you have to put in the toolbox. All right? And if you don't have these tools in the toolbox, you're not going to be able to do these problems. And math is not about, as I've said, memorizing things. But there are things that you need to memorize. All right? And this is one of the units where we have to start off by, we have to come to memorize these 7 properties. So, hopefully you've gotten the objective written down, and now let's look at what these properties are. So, over here, if we focus over here, and then we make it a little bigger. All right. Now, there are 7 properties. And again, they're not numbered in math. It's not like you could say to someone, oh, the first property of exponents. But it might be helpful for us to number them, just so that when we work on some problems, I can quickly refer to which property I'm applying. Now, the first one says a to the negative m. So that's when we have a negative exponent. And here, the little analogy I use is that the base has to switch teams. And you might say, well, what the heck is he talking about? Well, let's write in here an example of this. So what if I said a to the negative third? See, right now, a is in the numerator. There's an implied denominator of 1. And what I mean by switch teams is the a needs to go down to the denominator so that it has a positive exponent. And now there's nothing on top while there's an implied 1 up there. All right? Now, otherwise, a separate problem could be something like 1 over x to the negative fourth. Now, what does that mean? Well, again, the x needs to go from the denominator to the numerator so that its exponent can become positive. Now, the second property of exponents, and again, these aren't numbered in math, but it's going to be helpful for us to memorize them, or to number them, is that anything to the power of 0 equals 1 as long as the base is not 0. So, what is 729 to the power of 0? Well, it equals 1. All right, because anything to the power of 0, except for the number 0, equals 1. Now, the third property of exponents. What happens when you're multiplying the same base? So here it's key that you recognize that it's the same base being multiplied. What do you do with the exponents? Well, here it tells us when you multiply the same base, you add the exponents. So if I wanted to do a squared times a cubed, that's going to equal a to the 5th, because that's 2 plus 3. And it makes sense because this is really a times a, and this is a times a times a. So that's really a being multiplied by itself 5 times. Now, fourth property. When you raise a power, so this right here is a power. We have this thing as a power. It's a to the m. Kind of went over the m there. Let me clean that up a little bit. But it's a to the m. And what are we doing with a to the m? Well, we're raising it to the power of n. So what do you do with the exponents then? Well, you multiply them. So if I wanted to see what that might look like, what if I had a squared and I wanted to cube that? Well, a lot of students mistakenly put a to the 5th, but it's really a to the 6th. And if you think about it, see, some of this is memorization, but you could also figure this out on your own. What does it mean to cube something? Well, that would be a squared times a squared times a squared. And then by using this property up here, oh, we would add the 2's. 2 plus 2 plus 2 would be 6. All right, fifth property. And again, you have to memorize these. Expect a quiz. Here, what if we have a product? So that's what we have in here. We have a product. We just have a times b. And what are we doing with it? We're raising it to the m power. Well, we're going to, and you'll notice it's in parentheses, because it's not really the distributive property, but it might be helpful to think of. We're going to distribute that m to every part of the product. So a to the m times b to the m. And if I wanted to look at a real example of that, what if I had 2x cubed? Well, that's 2 cubed x cubed. And of course, if the instructions are simplifying, we don't leave something as 2 cubed because it would be easier to say that 2 cubed is 8, x cubed. All right, sixth property. When you're dividing the same base, again, it's important to recognize that this is the same base being divided. Well, you subtract the exponent. So if I had x to the fifth over x squared, well, that's going to be x cubed, because I'm subtracting the 5 minus 2. All right, seventh property, the last property of exponents we're working on in this unit. All right, when you have a quotient, that's what we have right here. We have a divided by b, and we're raising that to the m power. Again, we're going to distribute that m to both parts of the division problem. So if I had something like x divided by 2 cubed, I could think of that as x cubed over 2 cubed. But of course, we recognize that we don't want to leave 2 cubed as 2 cubed when we can simplify it to be 8. All right, those are the 7 properties of exponents. Gotta know them cold. All right, so you have to memorize those. Expect a quiz. Again, that's the second time I've said it. But now let's start looking at some of these where the big question for a lot of students is, how do I know when I'm done? And the answer to that is, you are done when you can't apply any more of these anymore. All right? So some problem we may just have to apply one of them. Another problem we might have to apply 2 of them. Another problem we might have to apply all 7 of them. But we know we're not done until none of these properties can be applied anymore. So on the first page here, I'm going to do some easier ones. All right. On the following pages, we're going to do some more complicated ones. So let's just look at this. What if I said simplify, and I wanted you to simplify the following? X to the fifth y squared, and I wanted you to cube that. That's kind of hard to tell. Let me clean that up a little bit. All right, what if I wanted you to cube that? Now, which property is being applied here? That's the first thing I look at, is I have to know these 7 properties, and then I can tell myself, well, this is a multiplication problem in here being raised to a power. So that's a product to a power. That's actually this one right here. All right? But it's kind of also this one, because we actually have properties or exponents on these different parts here. So let's look at what we have to do. I need to give this cubed to both of these. So what I'm really working with here is then it's got to be x to the fifth cubed and y squared cubed. All right? Now, right there, what I did is I just applied what would have been called property number 5 for us. All right? But I'm not done yet, because now I need to apply property 4, which tells me to multiply the exponents when I'm raising a power to a power. So what do I get? Well, x to the fifth cubed is going to be x to the 15th. And y squared cubed is going to be y to the 6th. Now, when do I know I'm done? Well, I'm only done when I can't apply any more of these. And in this case, there aren't any more to apply. So let's look at another one. What if I said to simplify 2x cubed y to the negative 4th squared? Now, you'll see again I need to apply property 5. I need to give this 2 to every part of this multiplication problem in here. So I need to give the 2 to the 2. I need to give it to the x cubed, and I need to give it to the y to the negative 4th. So that would be 2 squared. It would be x cubed needs to be squared, and it would be y to the negative 4th needs to be squared. And again, if I'm keeping track of which property I just applied, for us, I just applied property 5. Now, 2 squared is 4. X cubed squared Well, again, that's property 4 now, right? Because I'm raising a power to a power. And this becomes x to the 6th. And again, it's property 4 here, where I need to multiply these. That's y to the negative 8. Now, this was just like the previous problem, but now we notice that we're not quite done yet, because there still is a property we can apply, and it's property number 1. Property number 1 deals with the negative exponents. So, the 4 gets to stay put. The x to the 6th gets to stay put. But the y to the negative 8. All right, in math, we don't leave things with negative exponents. So the y needs to, with my analogy up here, change teams, so to speak. The y needs to go to the denominator, and its exponent becomes positive. Now, are there any more properties we can apply? No, so that means we're done. Now, let's look at some harder ones. So here, now obviously this one's got a lot of parts to it. So, where are we going to start? Again, if I'm just numbering these, just so we can refer to them easy. We got 7 properties, and we have to apply any of them we can until there aren't any more to apply. So here, the one that jumps out at me is I'm going to give this 2 to everybody. All right, that's property number 5. But you may also notice that we have an x squared here and an x here, and that we could apply, in effect, that's the division property, property 6 first. So I'm going to force you to do that one first, just in this problem, so that you see it differently. So the first thing I'm looking at is, wait a minute, I have x's on top and I have x's on the bottom. So that's going to be 7. Now what's x squared over x? Well, that means I have 2 x's on the top and 1 x on the bottom. So clearly that leaves me with just an x on top, which is 2 minus 1 gives me the implied exponent of 1 here. Now, I have z to the 4th. Now here, I still have y to the negative 3. The x I've already taken care of, and I have it squared. So, I took care of property 6. All right, I just applied property 6 there. Now I can come back, and maybe I'll apply property 5 now, which means I'm going to give that 2 to everybody. So it's going to be 7 squared, x squared, z to the 4th needs to be squared, and that's going to be over y to the negative 3 squared. So not only is this property 5, it's also kind of property 7. So property 5 and property 7 are both being applied there. Now, let's just simplify this. What is 7 squared? Well, 7 squared is 49. What is x squared? That's just x squared. Z to the 4th squared. Well, that's property 4 here. So z to the 4th being squared, I multiply the exponents. That gives me z to the 8th. And now the next one, on the bottom. Y to the negative 3 squared. Well, that's y to the negative 6th. Now, are there any other properties to apply? Well, sure, I have a negative exponent, so I have to take care of that. So, 49 stays put, x squared stays put, z to the 8th stays put, but the y needs to come back, it needs to change teams so that its exponent can be positive. Now, are there any more properties I can apply? And the answer is no. So the good news is I'm done, because I'm done when I can't apply any more of these properties. All right, make sure you memorize these properties so when you come in, you have them memorized. We will take a quiz on them. All right, and then we're going to start working on problems applying. So we will see you next class. Thank you.